All right. Hi, everyone. We are going to get started at noon in about like 2 minutes. Um, just relax and we will begin soon.
All right. My phone and watch are saying that it's noon, so let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Becky Shields. I am the Director of Advocacy Programs here at the Arc of Indiana.
And I am Sean Fulton. I am the Advocacy Engagement and Education Manager for the Arc of Indiana.
And we are so happy to have you today for our digital literacy webinar. This is session 2. So last week we learned about computer basics on Windows 10. And this week we are going to be covering computer basics for Mac computers. Um, Also, in this session, there are going to be 10 weeks. It's going to be every Tuesday from 12 to 1 Eastern Time. We're also going to be covering email basics, video conferencing basics, smartphone basics for both Android and iPhone. We're also going to be covering online safety, avoiding relationship scams and exploitation, and do a session on digital citizenship. So these webinars will be happening every Tuesday from 12 to 1 Eastern Time, with the final webinar being on May 5th. If you're not able to attend a webinar or you're not able to attend the entire portion of a webinar, these are going to be recorded and shared on our YouTube page. So, just one moment. I want to make sure I am recording. All right, there we go. Just some webinar, just some housekeeping for this webinar. This is a webinar, so you are not on camera and you are automatically muted. If at any time you have any questions, there is a Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. You can put a question in the Q&A. Also, feel free to use the webinar chat. We will be moderating that, or if you prefer to speak, you can raise your hand and we can invite you to unmute and allow you to speak that way. So, with all of that out of the way, we are going to go ahead and get started. So, just an overview, the digital literacy curriculum is available to you all because the Arc of Indiana received a grant from the Arc of the United States. The Arc of the United States, in partnership with AT&T and the Arc of San Francisco, did design this curriculum that we'll be using for you today. So, just to provide a brief overview of what we will be learning today, we are going to be learning about Mac operating systems. So, those are MacBooks. If you have an Apple computer, that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to learn how to find and navigate the desktop, find and organize files and folders, as well as manage the windows of the applications, save and close files, and delete files. We will be giving some tips for using a Mac operating system at the end of this webinar, and we are going to do some practice. We have a few questions at the end of this webinar to help test what we've learned. So, before we get started, I would love if you all could just put in the chat, or you can raise your hand if you prefer to come off mute, what kinds of things you want to do with a computer. Or I'm assuming since you're on this webinar, you already have a basic understanding of how to use a computer. So, if you want to put in the chat things that you use your computer for now, I'll give you just a couple minutes to put that in the chat. Or, like I said, you could raise your hand and be invited off of mute if you'd prefer to share what you use your computer for out loud. While we're waiting for people to drop things in the chat, Sean, would you mind sharing what you use your computer for?
Yeah, so I use my computer for um, listening to music um, every once in a while I'm here at work, and it helps me focus. But also, I order things through it and um, do all sorts of meetings.
Thanks for sharing, Sean. Yeah, things that I use my computer for. Um, Certainly, I use it for Zoom for a lot of meetings for work. I listen to iTunes on my computer when I need a little pick me up in the middle of the day. I'm an online shopper, so I shop a lot online. And I also use my personal computer to stream Netflix and Hulu, Disney Plus, all those good streaming services. I like to watch TV and movies on my computer. It looks like we don't have anyone popping in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next slide. But certainly, if you want to continue to share in the chat, we can come back to that at another time. So, first, we're going to be talking about the operating system. And what the operating system is, it's the software that handles the functions of the computer to make sure that everything is working together and working appropriately. So, if you think of the operating system kind of like the brain of the computer, right? Your brain works to manage your body, making sure that you're breathing, that your heart's pumping, that your temperature is regulated. And the operating system of a computer kind of does the same thing. It manages all the functions of the computer to make sure that everything is working together so that your computer runs smoothly. So, operating systems for PCs or Windows computer is called Windows. We learned about Windows 10 in last week's session. But for a Mac computer, the operating system is called Mac OS, with that OS standing for operating system. So this next slide here just shows you a picture of what a desktop of a Mac computer might look like. Um, so up in the upper left corner here of the desktop, you will see a white apple. This is the Apple logo. Um, so if you are using a Mac computer and you want to know what type of operating system you have, you can actually go and click on that little apple in the upper left-hand corner, and that will give you a drop down menu. And then if you click right there, I know, and I apologize that this print is a little bit hard to read. On these screenshots, I'll be reading out loud what you see. I also realized I had all this over on my shared screen. I apologize. Um, if you see right here where it says about this Mac, if you click on that, that will then open up a little bit of information about your Mac. And then right there, you're going to be able to see it's very tiny on the screen grab, but it will tell you what version of the operating system you are using. Um, it's not incredibly important to know which version of the operating system you are using. I just recommend it if you're having any issues with your computer, making sure that you don't have an outdated version of the operating system. All right. So moving to the next slide, I've already kind of shown you a what the desktop of this Mac looks like, but I want to tell you a little bit about what the desktop is. So this is the exact same whether you have a Windows computer or a Mac computer. What the desktop is essentially like the top of your desk. So if you have a desk at home, if you have a desk at work, at your day program, maybe it's where you keep different folders, maybe different pages of things that you're working on, and also other tools that you need to get things done. So on my desk right now, I have, a notepad, I have a calculator, all the tools that I need to get my job done live on my desktop. And it's exactly the same for a computer desktop. So you have all of those, you have files, you have folders all on the desktop of your computer. So looking here at a screenshot of a Mac desktop, if you see right here, we've got this big orange square, and that is highlighting the dock. So the dock is usually located at the bottom of your screen. Um, it can sometimes also appear on the left or right side of your screen. And this is where you will find the apps that you use most frequently on your computer. You can open files and empty the trash all from the dock. Each of these little squares here is a different application or app. So, what are applications and apps? Those are tools that allow you to do things on your computer. If you have a smartphone, you all are familiar with the term apps. It's exactly the same on a computer. An app is just a program that you can run to help you do different things. So right here we have the icons for three kind of frequently used applications on Mac computers. This orange one right here, it has a piece of paper and a little pen. That is the Pages app. This allows you to open a document. Um, it's very similar to Microsoft Word. If you're more of a Microsoft Windows person, Pages is similar to Microsoft Word. Then this icon here has a white background with rainbow colored ovals overlapping one another to look like a flower. This is the Photos app, which allows you to look at and manage the photos on your computer. And then the final app icon that we have on the screen right here has a gray background with a darker gray calculator. And this is obviously the calculator app, which allows you to do math. It allows you to add, subtract, divide, multiply, anything that a typical calculator does, you will be able to do on the calculator app on your Mac. So looking here at other things that are on the dock of a Mac computer, we also have something called the Launchpad. It's kind of in the far left of the dock, and it is an icon that is a gray background with 9 differently colored squares inside of it. And the dock um, lists the most commonly used applications. But if you ever want to see all of the applications that are on your computer, the Launchpad is where it will be. So on a Windows computer, you have the Start menu, which allows you to see all of the different applications. On a Mac computer, excuse me, it is the Launchpad. It lists every single application that you have downloaded to your Mac. If you want to open an application from the Launchpad, you only need to single click or click once, and that will open the application from the Launchpad. Moving along to other parts of the Mac desktop, at the top of the Mac, we have the menu bar. So this includes the Apple menu. It'll have the date, time, volume control, and more. And something that is really interesting about the menu bar on a Mac computer is that it will change depending on which program is open. And I will show you what I mean by that as we go and start kind of opening up different applications using these screenshots here. Also included on this menu bar is the Siri application. So, if you are an iPhone user or you are friends with someone who is an iPhone user, you might know what Siri is. It's a AI assistant that helps answer questions, helps you open things. And just like an iPhone has Siri, your Mac computer will also have Siri. So here, if you want to utilize Siri, you can press that button. It's a little difficult for me to give a visual description on, but it is essentially a circle with a bunch of orbs. It looks a little bit sci-fi, um, to be honest. And if you click on that, you can then speak to your computer and say, "Hey Siri, what's the weather going to be like tomorrow?" Or open pages, and it will do that for you. Also, in the menu bar, when you're looking towards the top right here, there is an icon that looks like a little magnifying glass. And this is the search icon. And that allows you to find a specific file, a computer setting, or even an application on a computer. This is what you can use when you're looking for something that you can't quite find. You can click that magnifying glass and type in what you're looking for. And if it is on your computer, the search bar will find it. So I am going to pause here. It looks like we've also had some new people attend, kind of sign on. So I do want to just say welcome. We are so happy to have you here. Um, if at any time you have any questions, we are monitoring the chat as well as the Q&A. And if at any time, if you're more comfortable speaking, rather than typing your questions into the chat or Q&A box, you can go ahead and raise your hand and we will invite you off of mute so that you can ask your question verbally. So with that, if there are any questions about the desktop, I'd love to answer those now, before we kind of do this final review slide and move on to the next portion of using a Mac computer. And I'll give it just a few minutes before we work through this last slide.
I do have a question, but I think I should wait till after this part is over.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and ask it now in case you forget?
Well, you do know me well.
Yeah,
Uh, so if, okay, Mac is owned by Apple, right?
correct.
Okay, so why did they make it so different from an Apple computer? Or if somebody had an Apple computer and it broke and someone gave them a Mac and it would be difficult to learn how the Mac works, why wouldn't they put the same stuff as an Apple computer on there?
So Mac computers are Apple computers. So I'm a little confused by the question.
Okay, just like an Apple computer, like um the operating stuff is different from an Apple to the Mac.
When you say Apple computer, what, give me an example of an Apple
Like
computer.
what we
Like,
use, like what
so
we
the
use.
The computers we use are not Apple computers. So they're PCs, which are Microsoft computers, which is why they use Windows.
Right.
So Apple computers are MacBooks.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Um, and to answer your question about why the operating systems are different, I think the answer is just that they're different companies. So the same way that an Android phone is different than an iPhone, is why MacBooks are different than PCs. I think that's the answer. Does that answer your question, Sean?
Yep.
Okay. And I'm looking here. I am not seeing any questions or anyone wanting to come off mute. So I'm going to go ahead and review kind of this last little bit of working from the desktop. So I've mentioned already a couple of different ways that you can open applications. If it is a desktop icon, I'm actually going to go back to my screenshot here. If it is a desktop item, so for example, this document that my mouse is hovering over that says end of year party pages, it is directly on the desktop. So you would double click or click twice to open it. If it is an icon on the dock, that's this bar right here down in the bottom of your computer, you would single click. So if I wanted to open the calendar, I've got my mouse hovering over it, I would click one time. If I was opening something from the Launchpad menu, which you remember is this gray icon with all the different colored boxes in it, first I would open the Launchpad and then look at the applications, and then you would single click, so one click only. And then if I'm using search or Siri to open an application, those will be single click, one click in order to open them. So I'm still not seeing any questions or hand raises. So I'm going to move on to the next section, which is about files and folders. So a file is essentially a package of information. So going back to the analogy about the desktop on a computer being just like a desktop on your desk, a physical desk, I have a file here on my desk, right? And inside of it are different pieces of information. So my file keeps all the information about the AT&T digital literacy project all in one place. And then we've already talked a little bit of applications, but just wanting to remind you that applications is software tools that allow you to do things on your computer with the file. So for example, if the file is a picture, you're going to open that in the Photos application. If the file is a spreadsheet with numbers, that's going to be opened in Pages, which is the Mac operating system's version of Excel. And then if it's a document with text, it's going to be opened in Pages, which is similar to Microsoft Word. So, just like with applications, there are several different ways you can open a file from your Mac. To open a file on the desktop, you would use your mouse or touchpad to move the cursor to the file, and then you would double click on the file to open it. So just like we would double click on this file, we would double click on this folder. Anything that is on the desktop, you would double click to open it. So in this case, I'm actually going to open up the school party budget, which is a numbers file. So because I'm going to open it and it is on the desktop, I'm going to click twice, double click, and then this will open up. So here we've got a budget for, it looks like some second graders are getting ready to have an end of year party and they're creating a budget. Now, if you wanted to open a file in the folder, again, you would double click on the folder. This folder is named Jane's Documents. So this is the folder where Jane just keeps all of her documents. So I want to see what files are in this folder. So I'm going to double click on it. And here we go. It looks like we have about 5 different things here in this folder. So again, if we wanted to open maybe a file from this folder, maybe we're going to open the end of year party pages. Because we want to open it, we are going to double click and here it goes. We've got a pages document that shows a letter. It looks like it's telling the parents about the end of year party. And again, I know these screenshots are kind of teeny. You don't need to be able to read the text, just kind of showing you the overall what this looks like on your Mac desktop so you have a good idea. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how to change the size of the window. So we double clicked on this from the Jane's Documents folder, popped up in the Pages application, but maybe we want this window, the area that the document has opened up on your working area. Maybe we want it a little bit bigger. There are a couple of ways to change the size. The first would be to use your mouse or touchpad and you place the cursor, which the cursor is this little white arrow that I'm kind of wiggling around. You would put that on the edge of the window. If this were a live desktop, a little arrow would appear and I'd be able to click down and drag it to make it a different size. So again, this is what the arrow would look like. And if we hovered our cursor there, that arrow would appear. You'd click down and grab the edge and drag the mouse to change the size of the window. So let's pretend that I'm going to click, drag, and then we've got a bigger window that we're working with. You would just let go of your finger that's clicking on the mouse whenever the window is the desired size. Now we're going to go back to the original size that this document opened in. And you will see here that at the top left of this window, there are 3 colored circles. So there is a red circle, a yellowish orange circle, and a green circle. And these are other tools that will help you manage the size and the shape of the window. So the green circle is actually what's called the maximize button. If you want this window to fill the whole desktop, you can click the green button on the top left corner of this window and it will make the document full screen. So if I click this green button, now we've got a maximize window. So if you remember before, we had kind of that blue desktop background. You can't see that anymore because it is full screen on this document. If you want to make the window smaller again, it's a little bit tricky because the menu bar is hidden whenever something's in full screen. In order to see the menu when a window is in full screen, you're going to move your mouse, your cursor, all the way up to the top of that screen. And then here we go. We've got those three buttons again. If you click that green button one more time, it will go back to the original size. So now we've got that blue background visible again, and we have a smaller window to work with. Also on these windows there will be scroll bars, not all the time, but sometimes if your document is too big to all fit in the window, there will be a scroll bar. And this allows you to see more of the file contents that are not visible on the current screen. So there's a different couple of different ways you can scroll. If you have a mouse like mine, it may actually have a scroller, which allows you to scroll. And when I do that, it moves all the slides around. So I'm going to stop doing that. But you can scroll that way, or you can click and drag, similar to how you would if you're changing the size of the window. If you click and drag up and down, that will scroll for you as well. So here we've clicked, we've dragged to the middle. You can see now we see some extra blank space here at the bottom of the window. Then if we want to minimize, that is when you take the window and completely collapse it down so that you can't see it anymore. The window will go hang out on the dock until you're ready to use it again. This can be used when you want to access other files or folders on the desktop, but you don't want to close this window yet. You're not done with it. You just want to put it away for a second. You would hit that yellow orange circle, which is the middle circle. And when you do that, you see it's minimized. It's no longer on our desktop, but it actually is right here on the dock inside this orange square. That's the page. That's the pages document that we had open. If we wanted to open it up again, we would click on it, it would come back up. But we minimized it because we want to work with more than one window here. So I'm going to actually open up the school party budget again. Now remember, when you're opening something from the desktop, you need to click twice. So you double click on that icon, and then here we go. We have the end of year party budget brought up again. So now that we've had this up, let's go ahead and bring up the pages document too. One thing I want you to note, if you remember when I was talking about the menu bar, which is this bar right at the top of the computer, I said it changes. So right now we have this party budget open and it's in the numbers application. So it actually says numbers right here. It's small text, I know, but it says numbers. Now watch what happens when we single click, because it's in the doc. We're going to single click that pages file and open it up. And now the menu bar says pages because pages is the application that we have open. So we single clicked, we've opened this, and now we have two windows open at the same time. So we have the pages file open, and you can see back behind it, we've still got that numbers file open. So when you're working with more than one window, you can have them both open at the same time as we do. But if you're looking at this desktop here, we can't see anything that is on the numbers file. It's completely covered by the pages file. So if we wanted to move the pages file over, we can use that. We can pick up the window by moving our cursor, that little arrow, to the gray bar area at the top. So you see we've got the cursor right up here in this gray area. We then would click down on our mouse button, and then we have kind of we've grabbed onto this window. So then we can drag it to wherever we want it to be on the desktop. So we've clicked down and then we can drag it over to the edge. Now we can see some of the pages document. Whenever the window is where you want it, then you just let go of the finger that was pressing down on the mouse, and then it releases the window where it is. You can also, as you can see, we can't quite still see everything on this numbers page. You can also resize the windows. So remember, if you want to resize a window, you put your cursor on the edge, that little double-headed arrow will pop up. You click, and then you can drag to resize. So that was a lot of information. Are there any questions about files and folders on a Mac computer?
I have a question.
Yes, Sean.
So on a Mac, can does it have an HDMI cord? And if so, it's better to actually put it um, on another screen so that way you have two, so you're not trying to have to take each one off of each screen or off the screen. You can just see both of them on two screens.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So, to give everyone some background information, Sean and I both work with two screens. So, we have two monitors. So, this right in front of me, this computer screen is coming from my laptop, but then I also have a second monitor right here. This allows me to kind of have multiple things going on at the same time, and they're connected by an HDMI.
Well, and I will also say for the people that's on here, if they don't have an extra monitor, they can make their TV a monitor.
Yes, yes, you taught me that last week, that you can use an HDMI cord to actually turn your TV into a second monitor as well if you hook it up to your computer. I am not a Mac user, but I do not believe that they have HDMI cords or HDMI ports. I think the Macs are pretty simplistic, but they do have like different types of cords that you can get, so you could hook it up to a different monitor, to a second monitor. I don't know for sure the answer to that question, um, but I will find out. And if anyone else is curious for the answer to that question, please either email me. My email is bshields@arcind.org, or you can drop your email information in the Q&A box. Only Sean and I are able to see the Q&A box. So if you're interested to find out the answer to that, please drop it in there or send me an email and I will let you know. I'm not seeing any raised hands or things in the chat or Q&A at this time. So we can go ahead and move to saving and closing files. So again, we've got this menu bar up here. We've got our budget spreadsheet up. That's in the numbers application. So it says numbers right here. Anytime that an application is open on your Mac, you will notice that the menu bar is specific to the application you are in, um, rather than just like a general Finder menu bar. So again, numbers is open, the menu bar says numbers. So again, we're going to open up Jane's documents again. Sean, this is a folder that is on the desktop. So how many times do I need to click it to open it?
Oh, I thought I was still on mute.
Oh,
Double click.
That's right. So we're going to double click the folder Jane's document, and that's going to open up this folder again. This time we're going to open a different application, and this is the to-do list for the year-end party. So again, this file, we're going to double click it, and then that's going to open a new Pages application. So now we've got Pages up here in the menu bar. So while you're working on a file or before you close a file, you're going to want to save your work. You don't want to lose all the work that you just did. This is a party planning to-do list, and you wouldn't want to lose items on your to-do list because then the party might be a real dud if you don't have everything you need done before it. So you can save your work so that the party planning to-do list or any application or document that you're working on in an application is saved just as it was when you're finished working with it. To do that, you're going to click on File. And when you click on File, a drop-down menu will appear. The options for saving the file appear in the drop-down menu. There are a lot of options, but for the purposes of this webinar, we're just focusing on how to save. And you will see here inside this green square, about a quarter of the way down is the Save button. So a new dialog box will appear. And for example, this looks like we've never saved this before, so it's showing as untitled. So there's not even a name to this file yet. So the first thing you're going to want to do is name the file in the Save As box. So here we've got the new name. The name for this file is To-Do List End of Year Party. Next thing you're going to want to do is to select where you want to save the file. So there's a lot of different places on the computer. There's a lot of different folders, maybe, depending on the computer you're working on. You might have lots and lots of different folders. You want to be sure to choose a location that you will remember. So that could be on directly on the desktop, so you see it right when you open your computer, or it could be in a specific folder. So in this example, we're going to save this to-do list in the Jane's Documents folder. So we're going to double click on Jane's Documents. Now you can see that we have named the document and we've selected where we want to save it. So we are all set to go ahead and click the Save button. And now that file is saved to your computer. There is also an option when you're in the menu bar and you've clicked File, there is also an option to move the document if you want to move the file to another location. So let's say Jane decides that she doesn't want it in her document folder anymore. She actually wants it directly on the desktop. She could come here, click the File button from the menu bar, and select Move to. So this dialog box pops up again. You can see right now that it's in the Jane's documents, but there actually is going to be a drop-down arrow that you can select here, and that will give you options of possible locations to save the file. So like I said, Jane decided she didn't want it in that folder. She wanted it on the desktop. So she's actually going to click this option that says desktop. And then she's going to click the blue button that says move. And now you will see that the to-do list is has now made a home on the desktop. So now, anytime Jane thinks of something that she wants to add to her to-do list, all she has to do is open her computer and double click from the desktop to open the to-do list. One thing to note if you're using a public computer, so if you are using a computer at the public library, maybe your provider agency or your day program has computers that you can use. There may be some limits on where you can save things, just depending on the settings that they have. Um, if you're ever having trouble saving a file on a public computer, feel free to just ask a staff member for help. Speaking to the public library, librarians are there to help. They're happy to help. So never be afraid to ask the librarian a question. They're some of the most intelligent people in the world, in my opinion. And then, of course, your wonderful staff at your provider agency, your day program, they'd be more than happy to teach you how to save something or to show you where you could save it. So now that we have done all this work on the to-do list. We've made sure we saved it. We've saved it to the desktop so that it's easily accessible. We are ready to close it. To close a file on a Mac computer, you're going to go back to those three circles, those three buttons in the top left corner. And this time we're actually going to press the red button. If you've made changes to the document since you last saved it, you will get a little pop-up window that asks you if you want to save the changes before you close. But in this case, we've already saved it. We haven't made any changes. So once we click that red circle, it is going to close the application. So again, if we want to close numbers, the numbers file that is up here, say we're done with the end of year party budget as well, we've saved it, then we're going to again hit that red circle, click on it, and it will close the application. So now we have a blank desktop, nothing open. I'm going to pause for a minute here. We're getting ready to talk about deleting files. But before we do that, I want to make space for if anyone has questions about saving files. So again, feel free to raise your hand to come off mute. You can put a question in the Q&A box, or you can put your question in the chat. While we're waiting to see if any questions pop up there, Sean, do you have any questions or anything, any advice for people about saving files?
Um, well, yeah, I have a question.
Okay,
Uh, so what happens if you accidentally forget what you put the document under the name? How can you re get the document? How can you do that in another way?
that is a great question, Sean. And at the beginning, I know that this is a very information heavy webinar, which is part of why we're recording it so that you can come back and watch it again because I know that this is a lot of information to learn in 1 hour. But you actually can go back to the menu bar at the top. Here, we actually have it up here. So this menu bar, remember, it has the search feature. So you could click on that magnifying glass icon and you could type in to-do list and it would pull up that file. And then you could either move it using the steps that we just used back to the desktop or move it to somewhere that you can remember it better. Or you can just use that magnifying glass to find it each time you want to work on it. Similarly to using the magnifying glass to search for things, you also have Siri. If it's a Mac computer, you'll have Siri, so you can ask her to open the document for you as well. Good question though, because I'm guilty of that. You know that. I'm very guilty of sometimes forgetting where I save my file. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions, so we're going to move on to this little last section here, which is about deleting files. So to delete files on a Mac computer, you are going to use the trash can. And the trash can is located on the dock at the bottom right of the screen. The trash can is very similar to on a Microsoft computer, on a Windows computer, you have the recycle bin. The trash can is essentially the same. It's just what it is called on a Mac computer. When there's nothing in the trash can will appear empty. So if you want to delete a file, you will again move your cursor, move your mouse to the file that you want to delete. Then you can click on it and hold down, and that kind of selects it. And then you can actually just drag it right into the trash can. So the same way that you would take a piece of paper, throw it in a trash can, you can take this file from the desktop, click on it, and drag it to the trash can and put it in there. You'll notice that once we do that, two things. First of all, now the trash can shows that it has something in it. It looks full. And that to-do list is no longer on our desktop because we've moved it to the trash can. You can also delete files from folders. So if we wanted to open up Jane's documents, maybe there's something in there we want to throw away. It's on the desktop. We're going to double click to open it. And then it looks like we're not happy with this school picture. Maybe it's out of focus. It's just not a very good picture of the school. So we're going to click on it, hold on to the click, keep pressing down, and drag it to the trash can to throw it away. So now we've got a full trash can. Um, there's a silly image on here of someone throwing away a banana peel, maybe. Things stay in the trash once you throw them away. So maybe it's a little sticky. um, but just like the trash bins in your home, no one magically empties them, right? If you're lucky enough to have a roommate or a partner who lives in your trash, maybe sometimes you don't have to always take out the trash. But for someone like me, I live alone. Once I throw something in the trash, it stays in there until I take out the trash. So just like that, things on your Mac that are in the trash are going to stay in the trash until you empty out the trash. So that means you can still access the files that you've placed in the trash as long as you haven't emptied it. So if you want to access a file that you've already moved to the trash, you can actually click on that trash icon and it's going to, excuse me, I went the wrong direction. It's going to open up the trash. In here, you can see that we've got our end of year party to-do list, and we've got that picture of the school that we just threw away. So if we wanted to save something, so say we're not done with that end of year party to-do list, just like how we put it into the trash, you can click on it, hold down, drag that drag that file, excuse me, back to the desktop. So now you see we've moved it to the desktop. It is safe. It is no longer in the trash can. So if you're sure that you're done with everything in the trash can, then you can delete it or empty it. The files will disappear permanently. So never ever empty your trash if there's a file in there that you think you may need again at some point. Once you're sure that there's nothing in the trash bin that you would be upset or that you will need again if it's deleted permanently, there is a button in the upper right corner that says empty. When you click on that, it again is going to give you kind of a warning that once you hit empty, these files are going to be permanently deleted. So it'll ask, are you sure you want to permanently erase the items in the trash? If you're sure, you will click empty trash, and then everything that was in your trash can will be gone. These files will be permanently removed from the computer. And you can see now the trash is now empty again. All right, I'm going to give you we are a little getting kind of towards the 1 o'clock hour. So if you have questions about deleting files, feel free to still put those in the Q&A webinar chat or to raise your hand to come off mute. But I am going to move to the next session just so we can do a little bit of a wrap up and share some final tips for using a Mac computer. So tips for using a Mac computer. The desktop and the dock are useful tools that help you access common applications and documents. The launch pad, again is that gray icon with all the multicolored squares in it, that's what's going to allow you to see all the applications on your computer. Those folders help you organize files. The search box with that magnifying glass and Siri allow you to quickly locate folders and documents. So Sean, going back to your question and your example, if you save something and you forget where, you can use the search box and Siri to quickly find them. And documents can be restored from the trash can only if nobody has emptied it. So, just again, reiterating the importance of making sure you no longer need any documents or files before you remove them from the trash because they will be permanently deleted. So, we're going to do just a few quick review questions here. This first question is, if you want to open an application on the desktop, what do you need to do? Sean, would you mind answering these as we go? Just we've got a few more slides to get through. I want to make sure we do.
Yeah. Um, Double click the icon on the desktop to open the application.
That's correct. All right, so here we've got that Pages document up again. If you want to minimize this window that's currently open on your screen, which icon would you click?
The yellow one.
That's right. The yellow button at the top left side minimizes the window. All right. If you want to close the icon, which one would you click?
The red button on the
Yes.
top left.
Yes, the red button. Think of it just like exit signs are red. If you want to exit out of an application, you're going to click that red button in the upper top left. All right. So now here, if you want to save a document, what would you click?
You would click the file menu.
Correct. You would click the file menu up here in the menu bar, and then that big drop down list will appear, and you would click save. So let's say that I've accidentally deleted a file. Where can I find it to retrieve it?
The trash can icon.
Exactly. So it would be down here on the dock in the trash can. Remember, if you're opening an application from the dock, you just need to click once. You'd click on the trash, and then you'd be able to drag and drop the file that you deleted back to the desktop. Great job. So congratulations. We've made it through this webinar. Today you have learned what an operating system is. We've also talked about some skills that you will need to navigate Mac computers, computers using the Mac operating system. We talked about navigating the desktop, finding and organizing files and folders, managing windows, saving and closing, and deleting files. We also ended up with some of those nice tips for using Mac computers. I really, really appreciate you all kind of spending your lunchtime with us. If you could, please take a few minutes to complete this short survey. This just helps us improve. Like I mentioned at the top of this webinar series, this is going to be weekly. It's every Tuesday from 12 to 1 Eastern Time. It's 10 weeks, so the final webinar series will be on Tuesday, May 5th. Next week, we will be talking about email basics, but we also still have left, we will be doing a video conferencing basics, mobile devices basics. We're going to cover both Androids and iPhones. And then we're going to be wrapping up with online safety, avoiding relationship scams and exploitation, and also a session on how to be a good digital citizen. So, some really fun and exciting things coming up. But before we covered those, we wanted to make sure that everyone had a firm understanding and firm grasp of how to use the computers. So, please feel free to log off once you scan that QR code and have done the survey. I really appreciate you all spending your lunches with us, and we will see you next week on Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks, y'all. Sean, you're welcome to hop off if you want. I'm gonna actually turn my video and camera off. I'm just gonna stay for a couple more minutes to make sure everyone can grab that QR code and if there's any last minute questions.